Good evening, welcome. If I could please call this meeting to order, and if we could start with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you.
Okay, so first item of business is adoption of the agenda.
Any additions?
Your Worship.
Yes. Do you want to do that under new business?
Yeah, your call. Just want to do an update on the review of the Land and Economic Development Services audit.
Oh, so item 9.1, does that work? Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll accept the agenda.
Adoption of the minutes from our last meeting of August the 16th.
Any errors or omissions? All right, seeing none.
And moving straight into our presentations tonight then. Our first presentation is item 4.1, and you'll find the background to this in item 6.2 in your packets. The Government Finance Officers Association Triple Crown Award 2019. These awards go to Colleen Graham, Lola Barter, and who do we have? Vanessa.
Vanessa. She did some calling. So the first one, this is for the Triple Crown, and the first one is for Colleen for Director of Corporate Communications Award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting. I sound like a broken record, but I've been presenting these now for 8 years and 8 years consistently, and you can't say enough about the staff, and we're one of only 11 communities in Canada to receive this Triple Crown Award. So congratulations to all three of you. And it's for financial transparency in accounting. And we have Lola, Director of Finance, Canadian Award for Financial Reporting. And for Vanessa Bonneville, City Controller Manager, Financial Control and Reporting, Distinguished Budget Presentation Award 2019. Councillor Dumanowski, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Your Worship, I appreciate that this comes up later in committee corporate services meeting minutes, but in light of the presentations right now, it goes without saying that it takes many hands to accomplish a task like this, but we have three representatives who have demonstrated on a corporate level their commitment to transparency, to openness, and reporting that is responsible to the citizens that they serve. And these awards, as you said, have been repeating themselves a number of times, but to achieve the Triple Crown vernacular, if you will, to have only one of 11 municipalities across this wonderful country of ours be recognized, and Medicine Hat be one of them, is truly remarkable. And I dare to say, even though we are in the midst of a campaign, there's definitely a lot of questions around transparency every election, no different than when I first ran. This is evidence to that effect, and essentially bolsters our position into the future. We set precedents like this. It's hard to, when you achieve these kinds of remarkable awards, you have to challenge yourself to do more of the same in the future. And I am very confident whoever's around this table will be hearing more of these awards in the near future. So congratulations to our department and our city.
Thank you. Any other comments? If I could get a motion for reception.
So moved.
Second.
If we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Next up, we have Amanda Brinder, who's our city planner, and she's here to speak about bylaw 4679, which is the Hamptons Area Structure Plan, and bylaw 468, which is the land use bylaw. Amendments in favour of this.
Welcome, you have the floor.
Thank you. As stated, I'm Amanda Brinda, City Planner and Director of Development Services. I'm here to speak to you regarding bylaw 4679, first of all, which is an ASP amendment to the Hamptons Area Structure Plan to reflect proposed changes to the plan for Hamptons Phase 3. The amendment is being proposed to allow for new low-density residential development, which will complete the Hamptons community and more fully utilize existing infrastructure. The current version of Phase 3 in the Hamptons ASP incorporates low-density residential, medium-density residential in the form of row houses and garden apartments, commercial and open space, whereas the proposed amendment to Phase 3 will contain low-density residential, commercial, and open space. The proponent has adjusted the proposed residential density mix due to the decision to retain and expand the mobile home park, which provides a housing option, an existing housing option within the Hamptons community. So previously, we had received a submission from Cove Communities, who owns the mobile home park, indicating some concerns that they had regarding an inclusion of a sentence which referred to a cost-sharing agreement between themselves and Lansdowne, the proponent for the amendment. Since then, Cove Communities, Lansdowne, and Planning and Development Services have all agreed that the sentence can be removed without affecting the ASP plan, the ASP. So Planning and Development Services therefore recommends that this sentence be removed from the ASP. Additionally, Cove Communities had concerns about the location of a proposed sanitary connection. This issue has also been resolved internally with the current connection remaining in place. So no change to the proposed ASP is required to reflect this. And we have written confirmation from Cove Communities that they feel that their issues have been resolved. So for those reasons, we recommend approval of the proposed ASP amendment minus the reference to cost sharing in order to allow Hamptons Phase 3 to develop. Alternatively, Council can refuse the amendment and Hampton will need to proceed as per the existing ASP, or Council can request that the proponent incorporate medium-density development into a new design in order to provide further housing options within the Hamptons community.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, that's some good work finding consensus between those two parties. Thank you. If we could vote. That was unanimous. Thank you. Want to go on to your next one?
So the next amendment, oh, this is the wrong presentation. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so proposed land use bylaw amendment 4680 is a land use bylaw amendment to align the zoning of Hamptons Phase 3 with the Hamptons ASP as amended. This bylaw cannot be adopted unless bylaw 4679 is adopted, as adopting this without the other one would cause a misalignment with the ASP. The proposed amendment will rezone the lands of Hamptons Phase 3 from future urban development to low-density residential, neighborhood commercial, and open space, as shown on the attached Schedule A or up on the screen there as well. We recommend adoption of the proposed amendment in order to allow Hamptons Phase 3 to develop for the reasons stated in the previous presentation. If the proposed amendment is not adopted, Hamptons Phase 3 will not be able to proceed at this time.
Any questions, Councillor Hirsch?
Yeah, thanks for that. Can you maybe outline what the level of open space requires? Can it be understanding, does it have to be irrigated green space, or what are the different levels of open space, and what does that mean to the future residents here?
Okay, can I get is it possible to get the map back up there? Thank you so much. So most of this proposed open space is, contains the stormwater management facilities. So that would, it would be designated as open space, but it is really public utility as well. There could be, that can also be used as an amenity space or a green space. It would not be groomed in the same way that a soccer field or something like that would be. The additional space up there is a park space, but that the details of what that's going to look like would be worked out through the landscape design. But it's a smaller park. It's not likely to be a large recreational space.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Samraj?
Thanks, Mayor Cluxton. And does planning have do we have any guidelines about what that open space looks like, or what the developer is supposed to do with it? I know we're having kind of discussions about that at Parks and Rec, but right now, are there any kind of guidelines in our land use that would guide them in how they develop that park space?
Through the chair, no, not currently. Although, as you mentioned, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan would start to address some of what is needed in the community and what that should look like. Also, generally, the details of that would be sorted out through our development agreements and such as we progress down the process for the development.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, could I get a motion for reception?
Second.
If we could vote. It was unanimous. Thank you very much.
Moving on now to the first of our two public hearings. Item 5.1, you'll find bylaw 4679, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat, to amend bylaw 4317. This is the Hamptons Area Structure Plan. Well, we received no submissions on this bylaw. Thank you.
So, Your Worship, I move that bylaw number 4679 be amended as follows. At the top of page 7 of Schedule A, delete the sentence that reads, "A cost-sharing agreement will be implemented with the manufactured home community."
Second.
So we're required to have a public hearing. If anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw, please come down and state your name. I'll ask a second time. If anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw, please come down and state your name. And a third and final time, if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions, comments on second reading as amended? Okay, seeing none, if we could vote. That was unanimous.
So we're going into third, correct? So I move that the bylaw be read a third time and passed.
Second.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Now, second public hearing, item 5.2, bylaw 4680, bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend bylaw 4168, the City of Medicine Hat land use bylaw. And again, this is an amendment to the land use bylaw to support that Hamptons Phase 3. I received one submission, as Director Brenda mentioned, and no others. Thank you.
So I move that bylaw 4680 be read a second time.
Second.
We are required to have a public hearing. If anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw, please come down and state your name. For a second time, I'll ask if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against, please come down and state your name. And a third and final time, please come down and state your name. All right, seeing no one, if we could, any questions, comments on second reading? Okay, seeing none, if we could vote. was unanimous, thank you.
So I move that the bylaw be read a third time and passed.
Second.
Do I get a seconder on that? Okay, yeah. And I've closed the public hearing. Just as a matter of process. Any questions or comments on third reading? All right, seeing none, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Moving on to reports now. Item 6.1, Public Services Committee meeting, August 23rd. Just for information, motion to close.
So moved.
I'll second that.
If we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Item 6.2 is the Corporate Services Committee meeting of August 24th with policy number 0171, loans and loan guarantees for adoption.
I'll move that report as indicated.
Second.
Questions, comments? Councillor Hirsch, or, go ahead, Councillor Hirsch. Sorry, Councillor Samraj.
No, it's fine. I can give the floor to Councillor Samraj.
Thanks, Mayor Cluxton. Just a question for Managing Director Eggert. I noticed that in the policy, there's nothing about requirement of audited financials for any community organization that we might loan to. Is there a reason for that absence?
So in the policy, we actually included a few things. Number one is a principle of the ability to pay, which is work that we would do in advance of approving any loans or loan guarantees to a not-for-profit organization. The answer to your question is we don't have the requirement for a formal audit, but we do have the initial and then ongoing financial review for any loan party or loan guaranteed party that we have to ensure that they have met all the loan conditions and they have the ability to pay into the future.
Go ahead, yeah.
MD Eggert, I understand that audits are very expensive, but I take it from your comment that we have other mechanisms of kind of ensuring that the city is kind of safeguarded against any problems that might arise with some of these loan agreements. Is that fair?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Hirsch?
Well, now I wish I didn't cede the floor to Councillor Samraj. That kind of stole my thunder. And the question was, and I raised it at Corporate Services, and I was the one that indicated that I think we need some financial oversight for any of these organizations that we support one way or another by either a loan guarantee or a $1 lease or something like that. And the reason why is that then we actually strike a little bit of a partnership. We have now taking a asset that is of a certain market value and invested in that nonprofit. And for me, it's a reputational risk of the city of Medicine Hat if we don't understand the financial strength of that organization, because I don't want to be that organization that suddenly receives the keys from that nonprofit or whoever we had that relationship with right out of the blue. So I've seen it before, and I mentioned it in Corporate Services, and I don't need to rehash it. We ran into situations where nonprofits did not future-proof themselves and then later came to the City of Medicine Hat looking for money. And I think that's, not financially prudent on behalf of that nonprofit, but in some cases bad on the City of Medicine Hat for us not to be, as a partner, saying, we need to look at future-proofing this organization and what are the steps? What are the steps that this nonprofit or this group that we are in partnership of to make sure that they future-proof themselves? So I'm satisfied with the language. I saw some of the iterations that was in there. For me, it's not strong enough. And then I guess a little point to Councillor Samraj. I wasn't necessarily looking for audited financial statements, because audited and notice to reader and review engagement are completely all different ballgames. I just wanted to be able to look at their financial statements, take a quick glance to see if the strength is still there for them to continue as an ongoing enterprise. So that was my hope, and hopefully that would come through going forward. Thank you.
Good comments. Councillor Dumanowski?
Your Worship, just to add to Councillor Hirsch's comments, and for public information, I guess the loans and loan guarantees bylaw hadn't been looked at or reviewed for a number of years, I think 30-odd years, in fact. But the fundamentals of that bylaw were whole and served us well. And the other part to bring to the public attention is the fact that, because I know I have people ask, well, why should the taxpayer have to backstop different groups in the form of a loan guarantee? And in many cases, if not all the cases where we've done that or do that, it essentially is a group who does not have, holds a lease, as has been identified, so they don't have the ability to go to a traditional lending system, and they don't have the credit. They have credit worthiness, but they don't have the ability to backstop their land holdings or otherwise against additional loans and improvements. And in almost all these cases, if the ones that come to mind without naming them, the improvements bode well for the city, and they have to hold public interest. So this isn't just any group who meets these criteria that comes to the city and gets a guaranteed loan. There has to be public interest at large for the city to backstop that, and in every case, it has been proven to be worthy. So just from the standpoint of educating the public who are curious why we would have to do this, again, in most cases, it's because they don't have any other ability to gain a loan without the city backstopping them. The city will benefit from it, and certainly the community does. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Our next report's item 6.3, Administrative Committee meeting August the 25th, with the 2021 Community Spirit Awards selection for adoption.
I will move both items for adoption, and after it's seconded, just briefly comment on number 1, if I could.
Second.
Go ahead, Councillor Friesen.
Thank you. I know the Community Spirit Awards selection has come through Administrative Committee. I happen to sit with the new Community Vibrancy Advisory Committee, and where a committee of them, and then finally the committee of the whole, looked over these applications and made the recommendation that you see today from Admin Committee. Anyway, the point I wanted to make was that it's quite heartening to see a group of completely neutral people with absolutely no personal interest in any of these candidates in a brand-new committee volunteer their time to look over the applications and finally make a recommendation. And I was really taken with that level of volunteerism, and I know they really gave a lot of thoughtful consideration to what you see before you. So I'd really encourage you to support this. The other point I wanted to make that they were hoping would be brought forward is that they thought, man, in a city our size, so full of wonderful volunteers, incredible talent and spirit, and wanting to give back to the community, why there weren't more applications or nominations in the first place. And we had quite a conversation about that. You'll recall years ago, or some years ago, not that many, we had these yearly, and then we switched it to every 2 years because we just weren't receiving enough applications. So, or not, I should call them nominations rather. So I just wanted to make that point, and I hope people in the community are listening, because we have such incredible contributors to our community, and I know it's a bit of a process to nominate and fill out the forms and so on, but it just means a lot no one asks for recognition, but it means a lot to be given some recognition for the contributions people make. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Samraj.
My comments are about number 2, if Councillor Turner is speaking about the community warmth, or the Community Spirit Awards, is that? Oh, conduct, okay, I'll go then. I guess this question is for Managing Director Eggert again. There's an amendment here for quite a bit of money. Could you explain why this amendment is necessary, and why we weren't able to include this with the original COVID relief package? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Back in October 3rd, Council had directed administration to allocate $4.5 million of COVID relief to utility account holders as of August the 1st. We did that. What we failed to account for are the condo residences which do not have a dedicated utility account. So in other words, this amendment is designed to capture those that were inadvertently missed in the first wave. And therefore, we are picking it up with this recommendation to council for an additional $310,000 to provide the utility credits to condo residences that don't hold a utility account. So in other words, the utility account is held by the condo association. So there's one utility account for the entire building.
Thanks. So, yeah, I mean, just so I understand, yeah, the mechanism that we used for the original COVID credit was allocating equally to every utility bill, but large buildings only have one utility bill. Just a follow-up question, I mean, does the rebate, I guess there was a question from somebody in the gallery about whether the rebate goes to the condo association or individual owners. Have we figured that part out yet?
So this particular recommendation, the credit will go to the actual condo association, and then the condo association will administer that for the benefit of the condo residences. So if this particular credit relates to utilities, each condo resident should see a reduction in some form related to this credit.
Thank you. I'm supportive of both of these things, but since I wasn't here for the vote in July to provide utility relief. Since that vote passed, and since this relief wasn't available to everybody, out of an interest of fairness, I'll be supporting this. But since I wasn't here, I hope my colleagues will give me a few minutes to just talk about that original motion there. My support of this amendment notwithstanding, I am, somewhat conflicted about the original intent of the relief package. I do know that it was brought forward sincerely because of the difficult year that it's been. But I also understand why the Medicine Hat News, for example, has not yet covered this story, because it is awkward when politicians hand out money so close to the election. I mean, I remember when I was 25 and I got Klein bucks, that $400 check still stands out for me. The relief package kind of underscores the benefits of us holding our public utilities, but also the risks. I mean, for the last 20 years, I think council has given away in decreased utility costs and taxes $650 million. That's money left in your pocket, which is no small thing, but there's always a conflict between politicians and businesses, and they don't always have the interests. Our interests are kind of short-term sometimes, which don't always play to the long-term interests of the business. So that's a kind of difficulty that's hard to reconcile, but I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. I just wanted to commend staff on how quickly they handled the issue with the condos. I know I received a few emails and text messages about this, and we were able to get this looked after right away. So thank you very much for that. The second thing, I'm wondering if the staff have any idea of how much of the $136 has been donated to Community Warmth at this point. Do you have any numbers on that as yet?
So this is a high-level number, but to date, we've received approximately $8,000 back in donations. Those would be from residences who have received the $136 and have determined that they don't need it. They don't necessarily qualify for the eligibility as we've laid them out. It is totally voluntary to donate the money back to Community Warmth. We're encouraging all recipients of the $136, if you don't need this support, please donate it back to Community Warmth. Community Warmth is a great program that supports utility account holders in need during this difficult time.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Samraj. I know you weren't here when we brought that forward. But COVID-19 we've been, 18 months going through. We have a lot of people who have lost their jobs because of the oil and gas reduction. Lots of people who have suffered and losing their jobs because of COVID-19 and at home. And it just seems to me that, yes, we have to be fiscally responsible, and everyone knows that I certainly push that factor. But sometimes our citizens, whose money it is that we take from their taxes and their utilities, deserve help when help is needed. Now, I would love to have given everyone $1,000, but unfortunately, that number would bankrupt the cities. But $136 it's a small thing, but don't forget, earlier on in COVID-19 first relief bill was $8.9 million, helping both small business and lowering taxes to zero from 3.9. So I think that has not, I think, in asking Mr. Managing Director Eggert to comment on that, that has not resulted in us destroying our financially fit initiative to get us off subsidizing taxes by pulling money out of reserves. So perhaps you could comment on that. Thank you.
So the funding for both the initial 4.5 million and this recommendation of $310,000 is really being funded out of utility revenues. And it does not impact either our reserve balance or our efforts with financially fit.
And I appreciate it. And I think most of the public will know, or if they don't, I'm going to tell you right now that we've had a particularly strong year in electricity, and that's for two reasons. We had a terribly cold winter, and we've had a terribly hot 3 or 4 weeks in July where everybody's bills were extremely high, and we, as a Genco, made some extra good profits by selling maximum amount of power onto the grid. And in fact, there was a time when ISO asked the city to put on more than what we were designated, or more than our 24.6 megawatts, because of the shortage of power in the province. So our little city helped to keep afloat the entire province of Alberta by sending, I think at one point, almost 100 megawatts of power for a few days. So that's the reason that I wanted to bring forth that COVID relief bill. I know it's not a lot of money, but I just think our shareholders and our citizens deserved to get something in a very bad time. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Our next report is item 6.4, Administrative Committee meeting of September 1st, with the Alberta Pound and Rescue Services Building Acquisition, Relocation and Retrofit New Facility for adoption.
I move the report for adoption.
Second.
Questions, comments? Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just have a question. I'm not sure if you would have an answer to this as yet, but when I'm looking at the capacity of the existing building, it says it's good for about 50 cats and 13 dogs. Now, we're spending a fair amount of extra money to build this new facility. Do we know what the capacity of this new facility is going to be? And maybe it's too early to tell, I don't know.
Through the chair, we're still working through some of the design on the cages, and we know that we have increased capacity to the extent that we can look at a regional approach with Cypress County and Red Cliff. I don't have the exact figures for what the number of cats and dogs that it can host, but I know it's a significant increase as far as a regional approach, allowing us to do that through ICF.
And I have a further question. I think in, was it this current budget year, we had budgeted funds to upgrade the HVAC system in the existing building. And obviously, I don't think we've done that. So will those funds be moved over to help to pay for this building and the renovations on this building? I think it was about 500 or 600,000, if I recall.
Yes, council had initially approved a budget of $500,000 to improve the HVAC on the current building. That item did not go forward, and that is the request in the briefing note is to cancel that project and apply a debt financing to reallocate that over to this new the new project.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Samraj?
Just to catch everybody up of where we're at this, if you don't have a packet in front of you, and Director Will can maybe correct me if my summary is incorrect here. When we first purchased this building, it was on a bit of a time crunch when we needed to provide pound services there. And this was a readily available building that suited our needs, although we knew that it wasn't perfect. This building has since then been recognized to require a significant amount of money to improve its HVAC system there. And the choice was kind of between investing in this building or finding a building that was much more suitable for what we currently have, and then selling this building, which both choices at the end will end up about the same amount of money. Is that fair?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's a good summary.
Councillor Hirsch?
Well, and it was mentioned in there, and in the decision item, it says the city has had discussions with Cypress County and the town of Redcliffe related to a potential regional approach, but it doesn't say that we've kind of concrete have an agreement. Can you tell us what the status is on those discussions? I understand we're going to do this anyway. I get it, and it does make sense. Certainly the cramped, if you see the pictures of the cramped environment that they're in, it absolutely makes sense for us to do it. I just wanted to understand where we're at with the other municipalities.
Through the chair. So we are actually having a meeting with ICF group next week. We've had some conversations at a very high level. Our primary focus has been for serving Medicine Hat with the ability, if there's ability to serve the surrounding region for Redcliffe and Cypress County. It's a bit of putting the cart before the horse. If we had the facility built and we would know what our operating costs are, then we would be at a greater position to be able to have a conversation about what that funding model looks like. So we're going in with a bit of a conversation around this is what it's historically cost us to run a pound service. If we increase capacity, we know that HVAC system's upgraded. In some cases, it's a bit of a going in with goodwill and saying let's try to reach an agreement if there's interest to participate as a full partner or a fee for service. Certainly more opportunity than what we have right now for capacity. That conversation we're having next week, we're going to introduce some of that. It's a bit of unknown about what kind of final costs are just because the footprint is so much different.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Friesen?
Thank you. I think most of my points have been made. I just wanted to reinforce the cost here and the background a little bit. I think some of you will remember, but traditionally, these services were provided by the SPCA. When they decided to reduce their mandate, I guess is the best way of putting it, we had to look for a different provider, and along that same time frame, Valley Pet Hospital on South Railway became available as it was vacated, and we knew that at that time that in time there would not be the space we needed, and so we already knew that it was a limited time, and we've had a 5-year relationship with them that's very good. As Councillor Turner indicated, the space is very cramped. It's just no longer appropriate at all. And so we've been able to find, I think, a very good option with another building that was facing a bit of a problem, and it's all sort of melded together very well to provide the additional space we need. We meet, both Councillor Samraj and I are part of the discussions that will take place next week with the county and Redcliffe, but we've already had some initial discussions at that table, and there's a very favorable mood to try to collaborate on this. So I think that's going to move forward very well. I can't say how many animals will be able to be served there, but the intent in this was always that it be regional, obviously led by the City of Medicine Hat, and that be a facility where there was adequate space, a good, healthy environment, and so on. So this has been quite a long time in coming, and I'd really appreciate the support.
Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Worship. I guess through to Mr. Will, is that there was talk at one time that, because we have the SPCA in one building and we have the Alberta Pound in another building, and there was one talk at the time about trying to put them together in a way to save operating costs. And also, maybe you could explain what the difference between the SPCA is and Alberta Pound, because I think most people think that they're both the same, and in fact, they're not. they do two different functions, correct?
So through the chair, certainly animal control, animal welfare in our community has a lot of different faces. There's Persian Dreams that deals with cats. There's the SPCA that is provides services for people who will surrender a pet. There's a park that currently runs our pound service for us, so they deal with the animals running at large. So by law enforcement's involved. A park currently runs our pound service, which was tendered out, and they're on their second half of their contract with us. So their contract's coming to an end at this point, but. It is confusing in our community because we have a history with the SPCA. The SPCA historically also, in addition to running our pound service, they offered our low-cost spay and neuter program to the community. That is currently split between two organizations now. So we have it where if you go to retrieve your animal from the pound, which is currently run by A Park, you could access the low-cost spay and neuter program. Historically, it was SPCA was running that for us. And so if you went and retrieved your animal, with that animal was not spayed or neutered, and you wanted to access that program, you would be going to A Park and then going over to the SPCA to apply for a program that was a city-run, or city program that was administered through the SPCA. So we've made that available through two organizations now. As far as housing both organizations in one building, we don't currently supplement the operating budget for the SPCA. So we have a contract with A Park. The contract that we have with the SPCA is just for their portion of the low-cost spay and neuter program that they administer for us. Certainly, if there's available space, that's something that we could look at potentially as a tenant for that organization or any other animal welfare organization who could be interested in that facility if there was available space. But we currently right now are responsible for running the pound service, which is for animals running at large. Other organizations that are in animal welfare are more responsible for, if I had an animal that I couldn't care for anymore, that's where a lot of these organizations that are not-for-profit, that's where their mandates come in. So I could go and surrender that for a fee, or if I couldn't pay the fee, that's why they do lots of fundraising efforts, so I could go and surrender an animal that way. Hopefully that provides some clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous.
Moving on to reports for reception, the Municipal Planning Commission, June 25th.
I move this report for reception.
Second.
Comments? Seeing none, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
On to new business now, Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to educate council as your chair of audit committee. I received an email today from Managing Director Eggert and felt it prudent just to share to you where we're at with this item. So this is in regards to the motion I made, I believe it was last council or council before meeting. Council directs that a qualified independent third party be engaged to review and determine whether the recent request for proposal of CMH 21-94, the Land and Economic Development Services, was conducted in accordance with applicable city policies and generally accepted practices related to public procurement in Alberta, and report the results to audit committee. So where we're at right now as it speaks, which is hot off the press, the update of the investigation is we have engaged Deloitte out of Calgary, which is a completely independent body, to conduct the investigation. They have no business dealings with the City of Medicine Hat at all at this point in time. They started last week with planning and their approach. They were reviewing documents and arranging interviews as we speak. We've asked that the final draft, and we being administration asked that the final draft report be delivered to City Council on the October 4th council meeting. So I just feel, thanks Managing Director Eggert for the email, and I think it's just imprudent to make sure everyone's aware of where we're at with the process. So as we move forward, obviously, and we get updates, But it sounds like we're going to get some of a final draft by October 4th council meeting. So interested in any questions or comments?
Could I get a motion for reception of that new business item? Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you. Seeing no more business before this council, we're adjourned.